High in the mist-covered peaks of the Blue Mountains in Jamaica, there is a silence that speaks louder than any cannon fire. It is a sacred silence, heavy with the weight of history and the echo of a war that defined the soul of the Caribbean. This is the home of the Maroons, the legendary warriors who refused to bow to the British Empire. 300 years ago, while the rest of the Western Hemisphere was shackled in chains, the Maroons were free. They did not beg for their liberty. They took it. They retreated into the unforgiving terrain, mastered the art of camouflage, and turned the mountains into a fortress that the most powerful army on earth could not conquer. They were the first Africans in the Americas to force a European superpower to sign a peace treaty, not out of benevolence, but out of fear. For centuries, the spirit of the Maroon has been the heartbeat of Jamaica. It is the spirit of total defiance, the refusal to compromise with the slave master, and the absolute rejection of a system built on exploitation. But as time passed, as the centuries turned and the world became more civilized, many feared that this spirit had faded. The diaspora looked around and saw leaders who were content to manage the plantation rather than burn it down. They saw politicians who spoke the language of the oppressor better than their own tongue. They wondered if the fire of Queen Nanny, the legendary Maroon chieftainess who caught bullets with her hands and led her people to victory, had been extinguished forever. But spirits do not die. They travel. They wait for a vessel worthy of their power. And in the year 2022, the spirit of the Maroon jumped across the Atlantic Ocean. It did not land in Kingston. It landed in Ouagadougou. It found a home in the chest of a young captain named Ibrahim Traoré. When the Rastafarians in Jamaica, the historians in Harlem, and the conscious youth of the diaspora look at Traoré today, they do not just see a president. They see a Maroon. They see a man who has done exactly what their ancestors did. He has taken his people. He has retreated from the global plantation of the West, and he has declared his land a fortress of absolute sovereignty. The connection is not just political, it is visceral. It is blood calling to blood across the expanse of time and ocean. To truly understand why Traoré resonates so deeply with the Jamaican soul, one must understand the concept of grand maroonage. In the history of slavery, this meant taking an entire community out of the reach of the colonizer and establishing a society based on African laws and African dignity. Today, Ibrahim Traoré is performing geopolitical maroonage. Look at the map of West Africa. Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger are landlocked nations. They are surrounded. The coastal nations are still largely under the economic influence of Western powers, hosting foreign military bases and using the colonial currency. But in the center, there is a fortress. The Alliance of Sahel States, AES, is the modern equivalent of a Maroon Town. Traoré has built a perimeter. When he expelled the French military, he was effectively cutting the supply lines of the enemy, just as the Maroons ambushed British convoys in the cockpit country. When he mobilized the Volunteers for the Defense of the Homeland, VDP, whom he was arming the villagers to defend their own soil, just as Nanny armed her people in the hills using whatever weapons they could capture or create. He is not fighting a conventional war. He is fighting a war of survival. The Jamaican looking at his screen sees the parallels instantly. They hear the abeng, the cow horn used by Maroons to communicate over long distances, in Traoré's speeches. When he speaks, it is a warning blast echoing through the valleys of the geopolitical landscape. He is telling the empire, "Do not come here. If you come here, you will not leave." This defensive, prickly, uncompromising stance is pure Jamaican DNA. It is the essence of badness in the most righteous sense, the badness that protects the innocent from the predator. The legend of Nanny of the Maroons tells us that she defeated the British not by outnumbering them, but by outsmarting them. She used the land itself as a weapon. She used spirituality as a shield. Ibrahim Traoré is facing a similar asymmetry. He is facing the combined intelligence agencies of the West. He is facing economic sanctions that would cripple a lesser nation. He is facing terrorists armed with advanced weaponry funded by dark money. By all conventional logic, he should have fallen months ago. Yet, he stands. Why? Because like Nanny, he understands that the true weapon is the spirit of the people. He has employed a strategy that Western military academies cannot teach: the weaponization of dignity. By telling the Burkinabe people that they are the descendants of Thomas Sankara, and he has given them a spiritual armor that is bulletproof. In Jamaica, this resonates with the concept of Obeah, or spiritual science, the idea that there are forces protecting the righteous warrior. When Traoré walks among crowds of thousands with minimal security, relying on the love of his people rather than the guns of mercenaries, the Jamaican observer nods in recognition. They say, "The man is covered." They believe that the ancestors are shielding him because he is doing the work that was left unfinished. He is fighting the redcoats of the 21st century, the neo-colonial bankers and corporate extractors who wear suits instead of red uniforms but carry the same intent of subjugation. The most radical act of a Maroon was to burn the cane fields. It was an act of economic sabotage against the empire. Yet it hit the master where it hurt: his wallet. Ibrahim Traoré is burning the modern cane fields. The cane today is uranium. It is gold. It is lithium. For decades, these resources flowed out of Africa to power the lights of Paris and London, while Africa remained in the dark. This was the arrangement. This was the so-called peace. Traoré shattered the peace to claim the justice. By revising mining codes, by demanding fair prices, by threatening to withhold resources, he is committing the ultimate act of rebellion. He is telling the West that the harvest is over. For the Rastafarian in Jamaica, who chants daily about the fall of Babylon, this is the prophecy in motion. Babylon is a system of economic exploitation. Traoré is pulling the bricks out of the wall of Babylon, and every ounce of gold that stays in the vault of Ouagadougou is a victory for the global South. Every contract cancelled with a French multinational is a spiritual triumph. The Diaspora watches this with a hunger in their eyes. They know that Jamaica, too, has been exploited. They know about the bauxite mined from their red earth that yielded little wealth for the common man. They see Traoré and they think, if he can do it there surrounded by enemies, why can't we do it here? Traoré is becoming a dangerous example. He is showing that the chains of debt and extraction are only as strong as our fear of them. Once the fear is gone, the chains snap. The cultural vibration is unmistakable. Listen to the music coming out of the reggae scene now. The lyrics are shifting. The iconography is changing. What you see young Rasta warriors wearing the flag of Burkina Faso. You see murals of Traoré next to Bob Marley and Marcus Garvey painted on the walls of Trenchtown. This is not a fad. This is a recognition of a frequency. Traoré has a vibes. In Jamaica, vibes is everything. It is the energy you project. Traoré projects the vibe of a rude boy for righteousness. He does not smile for the cameras. He does not shuck and jive for the diplomats. He sits in his fatigues, legs crossed, looking the oppressor in the eye with a terrifying calmness. This is the energy of Peter Tosh, who sang equal rights and justice. This is the energy of Buju Banton. Traore is the physical embodiment of the hardest roots reggae bassline, heavy, uncompromising, and shaking the foundation. The youth of the diaspora are tired of politicians who apologize, but they are tired of diplomatic language. They want the raw truth. And when Traore says, "A slave who does not rebel does not deserve pity," he is speaking patois to their souls. He is speaking the language of the street. He is validating the anger that has been suppressed for 400 years. There is a profound metaphysical aspect to this connection. The Maroons were known for their connection to the land. They knew every cave, every river, every medicinal herb. They were one with the geography. Traore is showing the same connection to the Sahel. While Western analysts look at the desert and see a wasteland of terrorism, Traore sees a land of potential. He sees the solar energy, the agriculture, the mineral wealth. He is teaching his people to love the land again, just as the Maroons loved the Blue Mountains. Yet this reclamation of the land is the foundation of true sovereignty. You cannot be free if you do not own the ground you stand on. The West calls him a junta leader. They call him a putschist. But the diaspora calls him brother. They call him king. This linguistic divide is the clearest evidence of the struggle. To the empire, the Maroon was a runaway slave or a criminal. To the African, the Maroon was a hero. Traore is living in that same duality. To the IMF and the World Bank, he is a problem. To the street vendor in Kingston and the student in Harlem, he is the solution. History is a circle. The Maroons left Africa in chains, but they carried the spirit of the warrior in their blood. They planted that spirit in the mountains of Jamaica. It grew. It survived. It resisted against impossible odds. Now, as it seems that the spirit has crossed the ocean again, returning to the motherland to finish the job, Ibrahim Traoré is the return of the Maroon. He is the proof that the resistance never died. It just moved. It hibernated. It waited for the right season. As the sun sets over the Sahel, casting long shadows over the acacia trees, the wind carries a new song. It is a song of freedom that harmonizes perfectly with the drums of Nyabinghi in the Caribbean. The message is clear. The fortress has been rebuilt. The warriors are on the walls, and this time, they are not just defending a mountain. They are defending a continent. The circle has closed. What we are witnessing is the birth of a global consciousness. The Jamaican flag flying next to the Burkina flag is not just a colorful image, it is a declaration of a new alliance. As an alliance not written on paper, but written in the DNA. The triangle of trade that once enslaved black people, moving from Africa to the Americas to Europe, is being replaced by a triangle of liberation. The ideas are moving from the Caribbean back to Africa, and the courage is moving from Africa back to the Caribbean. Traoré is the catalyst. He is the spark that has lit the fuse, and the explosion will not be violent in the way the West fears. It will be an explosion of the mind. It will be the destruction of the mental shackles that have held the global South captive for too long. When a young boy in Jamaica sees Traoré standing tall, refusing to bow, he stands a little taller himself. When a girl in Brazil sees the women of Burkina Faso marching in support of their captain, she finds her own voice. This is the power of the symbol. Queen Nanny was a symbol. She was a woman, yes, but she was also an idea. The idea that freedom is worth dying for. Traoré has become that idea for the 21st century. He has shown that the empire is not invincible. It bleeds, it panics, it makes mistakes, and most importantly, it can be beaten. The Maroons proved that a small group of determined people could bring an empire to the negotiating table. Traore is proving that a small nation, united and led by a righteous man, can rewrite the rules of the global order. The parallel is perfect. The story is the same. The ending, however, is yet to be written. But if the spirit of the Maroon has truly returned, then we know how the story ends. It ends with the plantation burning. It ends with the chains breaking. It ends with the people who finally and irrevocably free. To the people of Jamaica, to the people of the Diaspora. Look at Burkina Faso. Do not see a faraway land. See your own reflection. See the spirit of Nanny, of Kudjo, of Taki, alive and breathing. The king has not just come, the warrior has returned, and Babylon is trembling because they know what Maroons do best. They win. The abeng is sounding. Can you hear it? You,